Good evening. I am Sana Sabbagh, Vice Chairman of the Foreign Policy Association. I am delighted to preside over the Foreign Policy Association's closing centennial celebration. As President Kennedy once observed, we celebrate the past to awaken the future. In that spirit, I could not be more proud to recognize FPA's exemplary leadership and the leadership of tonight's honorees. In these trying times, it is crucial to have a nonpartisan dialogue, which the FPA has provided for over 100 years. It is my pleasure to introduce tonight's first honoree, Ambassador William J. Burns. Over the course of his 33 years in the U.S. Foreign Service, he compiled one of the most impressive records of any career diplomat. Ambassador Burns served under 5 U.S. presidents. He served as ambassador to Jordan and Russia. He was an Assistant Secretary of State for Near Eastern Affairs and Undersecretary for Political Affairs. Most notably, he was only the second serving career diplomat to become Deputy Secretary of State. His diplomatic career spanned from the Reagan to the Obama administration. Ambassador Burns' dynamic leadership was evident throughout a multitude of the world's most challenging geographically significant events, from the end of the Cold War to the Iraq War, the Arab Spring, as well as the Iran nuclear deal. These are just a few notable moments from Ambassador Burns' exemplary career. It is my pleasure to bestow the FPA Medal upon Ambassador Burns, and we invite you to deliver your remarks.
Thanks so much, Sana, for that very kind introduction. I'm deeply grateful to the Foreign Policy Association and its board of directors for this very special honor. I have long admired the work of the Foreign Policy Association, your efforts over many years to help educate the next generation on key global issues and encourage public interest and engagement in the foreign policy process remain enormously important. Like the Carnegie Endowment for International Peace, the Foreign Policy Association has been an advocate for thoughtful discussion of international challenges for more than a century. We both have our work cut out for us in the years ahead. Like most recovering diplomats, I'm entirely capable of droning on interminably, but I'll try to exercise some restraint and just offer 3 broad observations about the new era unfolding before us in American foreign policy. I'll try not to just admire the problem, but offer some ideas about what needs to be done about it. First, we have entered one of those rare transformative moments, one of those plastic moments on the international landscape, moments that come along maybe a couple of times a century. This one has several features. We see major shifts in the balance of power among states with the rise of China and the singular US dominance of the immediate post-Cold War era in the rearview mirror. We also see major and growing challenges beyond the reach of any one state. Problems without passports, like climate change, the single biggest existential threat to human society, global health security, and the revolution in technology. And we see major uncertainties about the role of the United States, the main driver of the old international order, seen by too many people around the world for the past 4 years to be drunk at the wheel. Adrift in domestic dysfunctions ranging from economic inequality to political polarization to racial injustice. Second, the Biden administration offers a chance to reinvent American foreign policy to enable us to navigate this more complicated and competitive landscape. We don't have the luxury of restoration, the notion that we can flip a switch or put a new and more competent driver at the wheel and expect to neatly recreate a world of deferential allies and suitably impressed rivals. Nor do we have the luxury of massive retrenchment. where we can withdraw from active engagement in the world, focus exclusively on nation building at home, and expect to avoid damage to our interests and our values. Instead, we'll have to reinvent our foreign policy and the way we conduct it. As the Biden administration navigates past the pandemic and begins a long process of economic recovery, it will be crucial to demonstrate to American citizens the connection between disciplined foreign policy and smart international cooperation and domestic renewal. The truth is that the gap between people like me, card-carrying members of the Washington policy establishment, and many Americans far beyond the Washington Beltway has grown wider in recent years. When we preach the virtues of disciplined American leadership, most Americans don't need to be persuaded so much about the importance of active U.S. engagement in the world, but they're pretty skeptical about the discipline part because they've seen too many examples of indiscipline, of failure to match ends and means, too many examples of magical thinking about our capacity to transform other societies while neglecting the need to transform our own. So more than at any other moment in my professional lifetime, it's important to see foreign policy choices from the use of the US military to how we manage our alliances, to how we approach trade and international economic policy through the prism of their impact on the American middle class. We'll need to draw a clearer connection between foreign and domestic policy on issues ranging from the pandemic and economic recovery to climate change and immigration reform. And in Washington, we'll need to break down the silos which all too often isolate foreign and domestic policy considerations and help cultivate a new generation of policy thinkers and practitioners as adept in domestic policy as they are in foreign policy. Recovering our national capacity for self-repair, what Tocqueville called the most exceptional of American qualities, but which we've been testing severely over the past 4 years, will be the key to domestic renewal. It will also be one of two critical elements in managing what will be an intense, long-term competition with China, the central geopolitical test for U.S. statecraft as far out into the 21st century as I can see. Recovering our capacity for competent governance and getting things done at home will be crucial to denting the self-assurance of a Chinese leadership that has been tempted, at least since the 2008 financial crisis, to see a United States in terminal decline. The other critical element will be reinventing our capacity for alliances and partnerships, for mobilizing coalitions of countries around common concerns and reshaping international rules of the road and institutions. That's the capacity that, at least today, still sets us apart from lonelier powers like China and Russia. It's a capacity that will not prevent China's rise, but it can certainly shape the environment into which China rises and safeguard American interests and the values we share with democratic partners. My third and final observation is about my old profession, in which I labored proudly for 3.5 decades, American diplomacy. I've never seen a moment when diplomacy mattered more to the United States or been more adrift. The last 4 years have badly accelerated that pre-existing condition. In the Department of State, career expertise has been systematically sidelined. Of the 28 Assistant Secretary of State positions, today only one is held by a career officer confirmed by the U.S. Senate. The historically high quantity of non-career ambassadors overseas in this administration is too often matched by their dismal quality. There has been a pernicious practice of going after career officers just because they worked on controversial issues in the last administration. The department's leadership was derelict in its duty during the Ukraine impeachment process, abandoning honorable career officers accustomed to incoming fire in hard places around the world, but not from their own political leadership, and already unacceptably slow progress toward creating a foreign service that looks more like the society it represents has been thrown into reverse, with only 4 Black Americans among 189 U.S. ambassadors serving our country around the world today. I have no doubt that President-elect Biden and his administration will make reversing those corrosive trends and reinventing diplomacy as our tool of first resort a very high priority. It will take longer to fix than it has taken to break, but we have a moment of possibility before us. Recovering diplomats like me have learned a lot of lessons, oftentimes the hard way, and I've certainly learned my share. But I accept this award with deep gratitude in an optimistic spirit. I have no doubt that the years ahead will be deeply challenging for the United States in an unforgiving world, but we still have a strong hand to play. If we keep foreign policy connected carefully to domestic renewal, if we exercise discipline and restraint, and if we can resuscitate the power of our example and our values after the values holiday of the last 4 years. So thank you so much again, and stay safe and well in this difficult time of pandemic.
Thank you for those wonderful remarks, Ambassador Burns. And now I would like to turn to Henry Fernandez, Chairman of the Foreign Policy Association, to introduce Secretary George Shultz.
Thank you, Sana. I would also like to add my congratulations to Ambassador Burns for his well-deserved award. Well, it is a real pleasure for me to serve as co-chairman of this evening's closing Centennial celebration dinner. It is a true honor to present to Secretary George P. Shultz the Foreign Policy Association Medal on this very special occasion of his 100th birthday. In my capacity as a trustee of Stanford University, as an overseer of the Hoover Institution, and as chairman of the board of the Foreign Policy Association, it is a special privilege for me to introduce and to honor Secretary Shultz this evening. This is my second opportunity to introduce and honor Secretary Shultz. Back in 1982, when he was president of Bechtel, I was a student at the Stanford Graduate School of Business and the head of the International Business Association. I invited Secretary Shultz to come and speak to our fellow students and I worked pretty hard on advertising his coming speech. Unfortunately for me, the students at the Graduate School of Business were more interested in technology innovators than hearing about an engineering firm such as Bechtel. Therefore, we were only able to get a handful of students to come and listen to Secretary Shultz. But he was very gracious and very kind and extremely thoughtful in his remarks at the time. Little did the students know that only a few months later, he will become our 60th Secretary of State. Secretary Shultz has had a distinguished career in the military, government, academia, and business, leaving me with the impossible task of summarizing 100 years of greatness in just a few minutes. Fortunately for me, Secretary Shultz is also a man whose reputation well precedes him. And he's not a stranger to the Foreign Policy Association, as he has graced us on 2 occasions before. Most recently, in 2011, Secretary Shultz delivered the Ethel Lefrak Distinguished Lecture to the FPA. He's also been interviewed numerous times on the FPA's documentary series, Great Decisions. In a recent piece, Secretary Shultz wrote that, quote, "It is tempting to believe that good diplomats are born and not made," end quote. And that, open quote again, "There is some truth in this because the personal qualities of integrity, empathy, problem solving, and the ability to build trusting human relationships are critical to the success as a diplomat. End quote. We are very fortunate that 100 years ago, this coming December 13th, one such good diplomat was born. Beginning with his service in the U.S. Marines in World War II, and extending through his career in the federal government under the administrations of Eisenhower, Nixon, and Reagan, Secretary Shultz has more than exemplified these qualities, and he has been the strategic leader the world needed at some of its most critical and divisive moments. Don't we need someone like Secretary Shultz in this junction in our history? During his tenure as the 60th Secretary of State from 1982 to 1989, Secretary Shultz exerted considerable influence over U.S. diplomatic efforts on a number of foreign policy challenges. This included resolving conflicts in the Middle East, diffusing trade disputes with Japan, and managing increasingly tense relationship with several Latin American nations, especially during the tumultuous Sandinista revolution in my native Nicaragua and the ensuing Iran-Contra affair. One of Secretary Shultz's most notable diplomatic victories includes paving the way for the end of the Cold War by helping to draft and sign landmark arms control treaties and other agreements that effectively diminished U.S.-Soviet tensions. He has been the recipient of numerous awards and honors. Let me name just a few of them. The Medal of Freedom, the nation's highest civil honor. The Eisenhower Medal for Leadership and Service. The Reagan Distinguished American Award. The Truman Medal for Economic Policy. The Rumford Prize from the American Academy of Arts and Sciences. And the first Economic Club of New York Award for Leadership Excellence. More recently, Secretary Shultz has focused his efforts on the increasingly urgent threat of climate change. He is currently the Thomas W. and Susan B. Ford Distinguished Fellow at the Hoover Institution and Advisory Council Chair of the Precourt Institute for Energy at Stanford. He leads Hoover's Shultz-Stevenson Task Force on Energy Policy, which addresses energy policy in the United States and its effects on domestic and international political priorities, particularly national security. I cannot think of a more fitting person to honor or a more fitting day to do it. It is my great pleasure to present Secretary Shultz with the Foreign Policy Association Medal for his outstanding leadership and in recognition of a lifetime dedicated to serving the needs and the interests of America and the world. Please join me in congratulating Secretary Shultz and wishing him a happy birthday as well.
Thank you, Henry, for this award. Now, I've been worrying about different aspects of the world for some time and have concluded that we are now on a hinge of history, sort of comparable to what the people at the end of World War II faced. Remember, what they faced was they looked back and saw two world wars, first one settled in rather vindictive terms that helped lead to the second. They saw the Holocaust. They saw 52 million people were killed in the Second World War. They saw the Great Depression and the currency manipulation and protectionism that aggravated it. And they said to themselves, what a crummy world. But then, as distinct from after World War I, where we walked away, they said we're part of it whether we like it or not. And I think that's our situation today. We're part of the world whether we like it or not. But here's what's happening. First of all, there's a huge set of changes taking place in the demography of the world. Every developed country has low fertility and rising longevity. So the age structure of the population is being turned upside down. Most are losing working age populations rapidly. The exception to that are the United States, Canada, and Australia, because we're immigration countries. Let's hope we can keep it up. But this is a big, big development. Then there is technology. Artificial intelligence is getting a lot of attention, justifiably so. It's changing all kinds of things. But also, not getting attention is business of how to make things more easily. More and more we're going to be able to make things we want close to where we are. That means deglobalization. That's a huge development. So we put all this together, and we're entering a new world, a hinge of history. And so this is something we need to explore carefully in the foreign policy arena and other aspects of our lives, because it's of such great importance. It's obvious certain things need to be taken into account. First of all, individual young people will have to change jobs probably 3 or 4 times in their career. But job B is not going to be like A, so they have to be retrained. And the evidence is clear that people who have a good, solid K through 12 education can much more effectively be retrained than somebody without it. That all underlines the importance of the poor quality of K through 12 public education in the United States. We've just got to do something about that. It's easy to do. We know what to do. But then we have to take the lesson of our forefathers and say, we're part of this world, whether we like it or not, and these are worldwide trends. So somebody has to get up and describe the situation and call upon people to work together to cope with the downsides, but also to be sure we take full advantage of the great upsides of these developments. I have found always in my relations with the Chinese, for that matter, my relations with the Soviets, with all the difficulties, that you can get to know the people you're dealing with on a personal level and have a reasonable relationship with them, where you trust each other. I've always felt trust is the coin of the realm. Here's an example. Fernandez, who was the Soviet foreign minister, took me aside and said, George, I want you to know that we have decided to leave Afghanistan. Big deal. We haven't decided when or when to announce it, but we're going to leave. So I wanted to tell you that so you and I can talk about it and see how we can arrange it so we have a minimized loss of human life while it's taking place. He would never have told me that if he didn't trust me. I wouldn't go blab it to the press. The only person I told was Ronald Reagan. And we did work out something better as a result. But it's just one more example on the tons of how trust is the coin of the realm. So I see this as an important development, and I've written a book that describes it, called A Hinge of History. And anybody who wants one can go to Amazon, and right now you'll find that you can't get it because they're all sold out. But sooner or later we'll have plenty of copies there.
Thank you for those illuminating remarks, Secretary Shultz. We could not be more delighted to share this special day with you. To mark this occasion, we have a special presentation from the acclaimed chanteuse Ute Lemper.
Good evening and welcome. The Foreign Policy Association is honored to celebrate the 100th birthday of a great statesman. Dear George, or shall I say, dear Secretary George Shultz, the world knows you for your extraordinary public services. But me, growing up in West Germany, I know you for your efforts to reunify my country. From Nassau Hall to Hoover Tower, we thank you for your services to America, to the world, and to higher education. And now it is my pleasure to sing you a very happy birthday. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear George. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear George. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, George. We describe the year 1928. Berlin, Theater am Schiffbauer Damm. Die Drei-Groschen-Oper hat ihre Premiere. The opening night of the Threepenny Opera. Kurt Weill, Bertolt Brecht, Lotte Lenya. A new chapter in music theater started. A song about the impossibility of wisdom and beauty in an immoral society. Der Salomon-Song. You saw the wise man Salomon. You know what he became. The man saw life and death so clear. He damned and blamed the hour of birth and knew that all around was vain. Ihr saht den weisen Salomon, ihr wisst, was aus ihm wird. Dem Mann war alles sonnenklar, er verfluchte die Stunde seiner Geburt und sah, dass alles eitel war. Wie groß und weiß war Salomon. Und seht, da war es noch nicht Nacht, da sah die Welt die Folgen schon. Die Weisheit hat ihn so weit gebracht. Beneidenswert, wer frei davon. Und der Haifisch, der hat Zähne und die trägt er im Gesicht. Und McKeith, der hat ein Messer. Und das Messer sieht man nicht. An einem schönen blauen Sonntag liegt ein toter Mann am Strand und ein Mensch geht um die Ecke, den man Mackie Messer nennt. Jenny Towler posted missing like so many wealthy men, and like the knife quiet as cash box. God alone knows where and when. Und das große Feuer hin so 7 Kinder und ein Greis und in der Menge make a knife, but he is an asking. He doesn't know where the child bride in her 90s, who's assailants still in life, is violated in a slum. Making home, but how much did you charge? How much did you charge? Did you charge? How much did you charge? Welches war dein Preis, Mackie? Denn die einen sind im Dunkeln und die anderen sind im Licht. Und man sieht die im Licht an, die im Dunkeln sieht man nicht. One can see those in the bright light. One cannot see those in the night. Be careful. Quand il me prend dans ses bras, il me parle tout bas, je vois la vie en rose. Il me dit des mots d'amour, des mots de tous les jours, et ça me fait quelque chose. Il est entré dans mon cœur une part de bonheur dont je connais la cause. Et c'est lui pour moi me l'a juré pour la vie. Dès que je l'aperçois, alors je sens en moi mon cœur qui bat. Des yeux qui font baisser les miens, un rire qui se perd sur la bouche. Voilà le portrait sans retouche de l'âme en gueule, j'appartiens. Quand il me prend dans ses bras, il me parle tout bas, je vois la vie en rose. Il me dit des mots d'amour, des mots de tous les jours, et ça me fait quelque chose. Et c'est lui pour moi, moi pour lui dans la vie. Il me l'a dit, me l'a juré pour la vie. Dès que je l'aperçois, alors je sens en moi mon cœur qui bat. What good is sitting alone in your room? Come hear the music play. Life is a cabaret, your chum. Come to the cabaret. Put down the knitting, the book and the broom. It's time for a holiday. Life is a cabaret, your chum. Come to the cabaret. Come taste the wine, come hear the band, come blow the horn, start celebrating. Right this way, your table's waiting. No use permitting some prophet of doom to wipe every smile away. And life is a cabaret, your charm. So come to the cabaret. I used to have this girlfriend known as Elsie, with whom I shared 4 sorted rooms in Chelsea. She wasn't what you call a blushing flower. As a matter of fact, she rented by the hour. The day she died, the neighbors came to snicker. Well, that's what comes from too much pills and liquor. But when I saw her laid out like a queen, she was the happiest corpse I'd ever seen. I think of Elsie to this very day, and I remember how she turned to me to say, what good is sitting all alone in your room. Come, hear the music play. And life is a cabaret charm. So come to the cabaret. And as for me, and as for me, I made my mind up back in Chelsea when I go. I am going like LC. Start by admitting from cradle to doom, it isn't that long to say. And life is a cabaret, yo chum. It's only a cabaret, yo chum. And I love a
This concludes the programming of tonight's dinner. Thank you for taking the time to join us this evening for FPA's closing centennial celebration. I hope to see all of you in person in the near future at an FPA event. You are welcome to continue your conversations at your individual tables. Good night.